This is the Between Part 6. Part 6, isn't that crazy? Let's talk about, first of all, let me put you on grid view. I don't know why it's in this weird view. Let's, a couple of things. Let's just go around the table and get like a quick sort of, let's get a character update. We don't do that very often. I want to know about your conditions. That's important just mechanically, but also I want to just know, where do you think your character is in terms of the story, kind of where they fit in, how things are going? What would you like to see happen with them? I know this is a little on the spot, but I feel like you can handle it. Let's go in regular order, reverse order. Reverse order. Fraser.
Sure. So, Ives Turner, the vessel most beloved. I see them as like 3/4 to dead, kind of. I've got most of my advancements clicked. I've got 4 left and 1 XP on the way there. But the problem with me is that, or maybe not a problem, a feature of me, is that I'm really into these Mask of the Future things. They're so evocative and interesting that I want to hit them quite quickly. That also means that I've maxed out all of my moves, so I'll never have Thinning of the Veil or Familiar. And I have 3 things on my personal quarters marked. So I'm going to try to use some more stuff, so by the time I get to that advancement that unclicks everything, then I'll have more available.
Yeah, I think that the smart sort of like power gamery play is to like try to use up everything in your personal quarters and then take the advancement that unmarks it, right? Because it's just like it's like a big huge win button, right? What I think is one thing to keep in mind is you are, like, as we said off the call, you're burning hot and fast right now, and you are going to be like you're pretty well along in your Janus mask. In a couple of sessions you could be like on the verge of retirement, right? You can balance that out by using your personal quarters stuff, your witch's cupboard, like more aggressively to get better die rolls, right? That way you're not forced to do the Janus mask, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. And Ryan asked about the personal quarters items. If you use one, you get advantage on the die roll, which means you roll 3 and add the 2 highest. So, and you have to mark it. You still have it in your quarters once you mark it, but it can't be used for a bonus anymore. Sarah?
With my Person Friday feat, I get to put the item I show up with into my personal quarters. Yes. Is it marked or unmarked at that point?
It goes in unmarked at that point, unless you use it in the scene, at which, because you add it to your personal quarters immediately, and then you can use it in the scene to get the die roll, right?
I see. So fending off witches used that large hand mirror. Gotcha.
Yeah. If it got used for advantage, then it's marked. And yeah, so that's a great question. Awesome. I love where Mr. Turner is right now. I love we're getting like such a big, heavy dollop of the supernatural just by having your character in the game. The supernatural stuff without the vessel, the supernatural elements would still be in play. Obviously, it would still be happening, but it would be much more subtextual, and that's fun too. But because of your presence, it's so much more forward, which I think is an enjoyable thing to see. But as we've kind of discussed, the give and take of that is the vessel tends to be the character that is getting ready to retire, right? Like they are just the fast character. Like, whereas you look at like the Undeniable and the Mother, it's much more gradual, right? Like their story is so much more a gradual build, which I think it's just how I wrote it. So awesome, thank you. Let's go to the Undeniable. How's Alexander Gennadios doing at this point, Drew?
Not too badly. He's still feeling a little exposed, but he's no longer consumed by a little bit of jealousy, and he's about the same. He's neck and neck with the vessel for advancements, but I've used significantly fewer masks, and my reflection is only a quarter of the way scarred. So he's unsurprisingly apparently in it for the long haul.
What do you have for your moves right now? Your specific playbook moves.
Besides the reflection, I have Unquenchable Thirst, so I can get rid of physical conditions with scarring my reflection. I have giveth and taketh away.
Unquenchable Thirst also gives you an advantage on die roll too. So
Yes.
if you leverage your physical appearance, that's the thirst part. And you have giveth and taketh away. That's interesting because those moves were written together. The assumption isn't that you always have them both, because you can certainly play the character without both of them, but having both of them means a certain thing in the game. And what it means is you are ready to like flex your muscle in the game, right? Like you declare people worshipers and then you fucking destroy them you basically like crack them open like an egg to drain their power, right? Like that's kind of the idea. And so you should feel you are empowered to do that. Any side character, you can't do a threat, you can't do Theodora, but like pretty much anybody else is fair game in terms of like that. And this is where we, especially with the giveth taketh away combo, we see the undeniable become a truly villainous character. Like you are a bigger threat than anything Hargrave House is facing, and you're right there inside, right? So I encourage you to lean into that. That's really truly what the character is all about. So especially this particular build of the character. You can do the version of the character that's the more like tragic, redeem me type character, or the more like sensual sexual character. Like that's a different type of undeniable build. The one you have right now is the I ruthlessly destroy people to make my way in the world character. So feel free to lean into that. Yeah. Also, there is that aspect of giveth which allows another hunter to be your worshiper, and lots of experience points and things get traded there. It's narratively a big deal, and I don't recommend anyone undertake it lightly because it means an interesting shift in the story is taking place. But if you're willing to go into that dark space, I think it's a fascinating angle for storytelling. So thank you. Let's go to Dr. Tagore. So Brian, how is Dr. Tagore looking?
No conditions right now. Those are all cleaned up from various things. I'm sort of thrilled with the new ideas from conversing with Sally No Face and potential for creating the child. Currently have, was it 5 parts of the child, needing 9 more to complete assembly.
That's pretty far along. Yeah. You can actually you can try to make the child anytime you want. You don't have to wait till they're done.
I didn't realize it. Okay.
Yeah, if you read the movie in its completion, or if you read it really carefully, you'll see that you can do this whenever you want. But if you do it before you collect all the body parts, you're kind of making do with what you can find out, whatever you can drag out of the river, right? And so it's a harder die roll, but you can do it. So
I'm picturing a creature with one hell of a limp. Wow. All right. In terms of moves, night work, working with Scotland Yard beneath the skin, so I can examine corpses and gain some information. And then, the other thing is having made use of the old bones and seen an actual ghost, I feel sort of a little tenacious, kind of questioning, am I a man of science or what happened there? Sort of wrestling with that. I don't know, duality, dichotomy. Dichotomy is a better word, I guess. That's about where I'm at.
What I think is interesting about Dr. Tagore, and I do think it's in part because you have old bones, and I think you're the only person who can actually use it. Does anybody else have Cosmic Passage Mark?
Correct.
What I think is interesting about what we've seen of you so far is we're really getting like the kind of we're getting the really like kind of classic Gothic horror story with Dr. Tagore, right? This has the feel of Bronte. This has the feel of Mary Shelley, right? Like it has that feel, and I think that part of it is that sort of dichotomy between science and the supernatural, which is what we're kind of seeing a lot of. What I think is going to be really interesting for this character is for you to like kind of lean into that. And especially with the child, we have not seen a scene with the child yet. And I don't think we necessarily should have by now, but I think we're definitely there. And this laboratory is in Hargrave House. For some reason, the other hunters don't know about it. But we don't care to dwell on that. And so I'm really interested in sort of like taking that next like sort of gothic horror step and like seeing the child, seeing a very creepy scene with you interacting with the child. Like I want to see all that, right? I just feel like that's kind of the audience that is me, the keeper, is ready for that moment with Dr. Tagore. But we are getting this nice like kind of truly like kind of classic gothic horror story, and I think especially because that, I think it was that ghost that really did it, you know, like that moment of the sort of angry sort of tragic ghost like appearing in the scene and like, you know, pleading with her tormentor. Like that was just such a good moment, and really like nailed the themes, and Dr. Tagore has been kind of like on this line the whole time. And so yeah, I'm just really ready to kind of see more of that, get more of that sort of tragic romantic story out. Let's go
to ask you a quick question.
Yeah, sure.
When is it that you choose to switch out your dawn questions?
During the dawn phase. So after you answer them, you can choose to pick new ones. Okay, so Sarah, let's talk about Willoughby.
Help if I wasn't muted. So Willoughby, at the end of our last session, had just been struck dumb by seeing a number of suns from another world. So that's definitely top of mind. I also still have a really sour stomach from the art exhibit, which loosely in quotes, the blood there was still a little like queasy making. Willoughby has not burned through many of the masks yet. As far as playbook moves, the first one was the fact that I am employed to Alexander, so I also get advantage on rolls in which I am defending him. I can only request intimate, vulnerable moves with him. And then I also have the My Person Friday, which I am really doing my best to work into every single play.
I think the key is for you to be somewhere else when the rest of Hargrave House is when they're doing thing X at night, you be somewhere else doing your own thing, and then you show up. And this is actually really appropriate for the factotum, because the factotum is written to be the heroic character, right? Like the factotum is, in many ways, the factotum is like the hero of the story. Like when you look at all the characters, the factotum is just naturally the most sympathetic one. And I think that like the sort of like balancing out like your devotion to Alexander with, you know, what we've already seen as your own like sort of personal past professional triumphs and your personal sort of like agency. I think that is the sort of like that's kind of the thing, right? And we've seen both, and I think that's good. I think like if you really want to get My Person Friday in there, you have to like not be present during the night scene, right? Or during the night phase, you have to be somewhere else, and that's good because it allows you all to do multiple things, but you are like, technically the party is not split because you can return whenever you want, right? So it's like split the party, but not really split the party, right? Not that this game cares about that much, but you know what I mean. What I think is going to be super interesting for Willoughby is, I think the main thing for Willoughby is I just want to see more Janus Mask on Willoughby. Well, part of it's we didn't have you for sessions, that explains it a little bit, but like I think I really want to kind of see the sort of tragic story of the backstory of the factotum, like the things that bring them low. It's a big part of the character's like sort of development, and so I'm just really anxious to see that, because your next Mask of the Past is narrate a flashback to the event that eventually forced you into servitude. I want to know what that is, right? Like that's a big moment, right? So I'm dying to see that. But otherwise, yeah, I think with all these characters, we're getting a great story. Everybody feels really like nicely settled into where we're at. And I'm ready to begin doing recap. Sorry, I spent a lot of time on that, but I wanted to just talk it out a little bit. Let's go to the threats. Follow me over to the threat tab. So in our stinger scene last time, I revealed that the Limehouse Lurker has become a servant of Theodore Brathwaite. If you're watching the video and you don't know what we're talking about, you didn't watch till the very end last time, so go watch the very end. So the way that what this means is the Limehouse Lurker is no longer an active threat. So for purposes of introducing new threats, they don't count anymore. it also means they can't be resolved as a threat. So even like there's just, you can face them, you can have scenes with the Limehouse Lurker, you cannot destroy them or capture them. It's just not possible. You can still answer questions about them. So right now, that threshold question of whether they're an old vampire or a young vampire, you may want to answer that because it may have an effect down the road, right? If you never answer it, I get to decide. and so during the final showdown, it'll be whatever I think is the case. But if you want to like, if you want to like put your thumb on the scale and say it's a young vampire, and that's something we can work with, then then you can go in and answer that question. So even though the threat is not active, you can still answer the question, any questions associated with it. You just can't resolve the threat. That's the main thing. So as players, you know this. Your characters don't know that, but that's something we know as players. So we're going to just set aside the Limehouse Lurker for now. But we do have a number of clues there, any of which can still be used to answer that question about whether it's young or old. The Coven, this is the one that you are probably most ready to tackle. It's complexity 6. There's one question: when and where will the final step of this ritual take place? And if you answer the question, you have the opportunity to resolve the threat by stopping the ritual and or destroying the Coven. So that's sort of very, very present right now. You have a lot of clues. There's the tarot card, the tower that was discovered outside of Rutland Gardens. There is the water that was moving in a northerly direction, street cats gathering, staring at the moon, the Mr. Turner's dream dominated by the color green. There was the blue impassable door. There was the number 6 missing from documents related to sort of city planning and hydrology. There was a phrase uttered by the hanging man, "Enter the spiral." Boy, how cool would it have been if the tarot card found in the bush had been the hanging man? That would have been fucking amazing. But maybe we'll get there somehow. And not everything is perfect. So, and then we have I have a note here: descriptions of rituals involving prisms. I don't know what that means. Was that a clue? Where'd that come from?
Both Fraser and I took the clue in our vulnerable moves. And
that's right. Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's right. That's a made up one. Got it. Awesome. The other active threat is Fig's Pigs. Fig's Pigs is the cannibal pie maker family. The father, Titus Fig, was captured, but the 2 sons and the wife got away. There are 3 questions, and you have to answer all 3 to resolve the threat. You have to answer and accomplish all 3. Basically, it's how to capture these people. So for Patrick Fig, we know that Patrick Fig believes he's an animal. What kind of animal is it? That's complexity 2. It allows you to lure the animal out into the open and then capture or destroy them. What type of victim does the other son, Obert Fig, prefer? That's also complexity 2. Lure Obert Fig to you and then capture or destroy him. And then the mother, what did La Hortensia Fig lose that she's trying to recapture or remember? Complexity 2, find La Hortensia and then capture or destroy her. We just have one clue here, which is a body whose organs were reversed. I think that came from Nightwork, right, Dr. Tagore, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, that's correct.
Awesome. And those are the active threats right now. I actually, I couldn't tell from the video, or I wasn't paying attention when I watched the video, but did we ended the day phase last time, correct? I think we're in a dusk.
Yeah, we each did two scenes in the day phase, I think.
Yeah. And then so we haven't done the dusk though, so we're going to be starting with the dusk phase. That's awesome. Is there any questions about the threats or anything?
Yes, the Coven, we have how many nights left? I think 3?
3 left. This is about to be the 4th, so yeah.
And
the
then
4th of 6.
Fig's Pigs, I'm assuming one of us wrote it down or had notes on it, but there was a sing-song sort of
there's a poem
that we got. Okay.
Yeah, the poem just leads.
The player.
Yeah, the poem just leads to the questions. If you just want the text of the poem, I'm happy to give it to you, but
maybe for posterity.
Sure, yeah. but the poem is just to justify the sort of questions that the characters are pursuing. So yeah. Any other questions about the threats or about anything before we start? Awesome. Let's do the dusk phase. I'll also note here that this is a good time to do answer a question instead of the dusk phase if you want. We can do answer a question in the Coven if you feel ready to answer that question. And then that way you can start pursuing the Coven right away in the night phase. That's up to you if you're ready to do that. Does anyone have a theory that they want to start working on, or do you want to wait a little bit longer?
We have lots of clues and not too many nights. Does anybody have any idea where to start?
Well, we have lots of visual stuff. The spiral makes me think of the water going in a northerly direction and then going down into some drainage thing, like maybe an old subway or something like that. But I'm not sure how the blue impenetrable door would fit into that, possibly, unless it's like the entrance at the bottom of such a location.
Is it possible to tie the blue impenetrable door and the cats gathering staring at the moon into the ocean in kind of a tidal phase?
Oh,
we humans cannot penetrate the ocean for long.
Oh, so the blue door would be a symbol. That's pretty interesting. Yeah.
That's cool.
Actually, that could tie into the witches needing a large body of water to perform the ritual, which may be why the water's moving north as they're gathering it.
I like that too, because if they're gonna burn everything, then it's like the opposite. We need like to consume water to make fire, something like that.
So maybe there's like a are there tide pools in London somewhere? I don't know.
Sewers that
Yeah.
Well, the Thames does have a high and low tide, right? Isn't it close enough to the ocean?
I'm not sure actually. Why don't we look? Let's look it up. Let's just look it up. I don't want some angry Londoner
right
on the YouTube
While you're
comments
checking that,
to explain
you
the
talked about the
Thames to
ritual
us.
involving burning. I don't remember that. Can you give a little more on that?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Oh, Fraser had mentioned that the ritual involved burning, and I don't quite remember where we learned that or the details of it.
Oh, we know that their goal is to the ritual will result in all of the accumulated wealth that the people who burned the witches going up in flames, which is
Got it.
also our house.
So the Thames is because it's connected to the North Sea. Each day it is affected by 2 low tides and 2 high tides. There you go.
There's also this just ties in with like underground and prism. There's a Crystal Palace subway that maybe we could play with. That could be fun.
Yeah.
Also, if it's taking place in the sewers that were built previously into the city, it could help explain a conspiracy behind why the number 6 is missing from city planning and hydrology reports. Is that the witches were affecting the people planning the sewers and therefore trying to shape it into, I don't know, something that would help create a conduit for their ritual.
Or there's like a 6th branch that no one can remember or note, and that's where they're hiding.
And the tower card is associated with the planet Mars, so the cats could have been looking at Mars.
Can they see Mars at night in the sky? Maybe cats can, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe cats can. Or they just instinctually are looking at it or something.
I like the
just in
moon
a
idea
creepy
too.
way.
Yeah. I mean,
And because it looks like the symbolism for the tower is danger, crisis, sudden change, destruction, higher learning, and liberation. So
the tower might also refer to just the ritual, right? Because the tower is about destruction. That's the way I always interpret it. And you've described the ritual as literally destroying the edifices of these witch hunters, right? Like, and their descendants. I don't know. That's what I thought initially when like, I don't know. That's kind of where my mind went, but it's not for me to say.
Who is this fifth? What?
Fifth hunter, yeah.
Who's-
Theodora shows up and she's giving her opinion on things.
Let me ask a quick question. We're not set on any particular year, right? We're just sort of Victorian era, but
Late 60s, late 1860s, early 1870s, but it's not defined. No.
okay. So I got an idea then for that tower card and the prisms. Do you know about the Crystal Palace? In 1850-ish, was the largest building ever built, making use of plate glass for like a kind of a World's Fair great exposition or exhibition, something like that.
Well, Drew just mentioned the subway, right? The Crystal Palace subway. So
that's what made me think of it when Drew mentioned the Crystal Palace subway. I was like, oh, the actual Crystal Palace. And I don't know if it would still be standing in the 1860s. I think it was disassembled pretty quickly after, but I don't know.
But not in our timeline.
yeah, it could be. Yeah, we can fudge it. Doesn't matter. Well, okay, so there's lots of great ideas here. I don't know if we have a theory yet, though. Like, do we have a theory yet as what to where? I mean, the location doesn't have to be like, here is the address. It can be just sort of general if we want it, but I need a location. So
I do like that I like the idea of going down a spiral to that subway station thing. I like that trope in we're down in one of those sort of places that have been built over. It's like a product of the previous generation that we could go through and stuff. I think that would be really cool.
So maybe where the spiral staircase is where the ritual is, at the bottom of that or near that.
Or just that's like the spiral leads to the entrance to it or something like that. And then we just got to look around in that creepy, cool subway.
So I think if we look at all the present clues, I think if we say that the ritual's taking place in the Crystal Palace subway, in that sort of subterranean, sort of like, as I have never, if I recall correctly, it's like kind of like tiled, right? Like I think it's like it's like called like tiles, like tiled columns and roof and stuff underneath the ground. I think I recall something like that from a long time ago. That explains the well, I don't know, because
maybe we're looking at this the wrong way.
Yeah, it's like suddenly, so that theory like throws out several clues, I feel like. So unless you want to bring them back in somehow.
What if it's like, because we're looking for a place, and if we're using each clue as an eliminator of where they can't be, we discover, like, enter the spiral shows us what we need to go underground, and the trail of water might lead us to think, okay, well, they're using some sort of tidal stuff with the moon. We need water. We think sewers. And then we think about the reports with the missing number 6. And then in the sewers, we're like, where could they be that is omitted from those reports? Like if it's slowly breadcrumbs leading to a place, does that work?
Yeah, as long as there's like a justification for any clue you want the die roll bonus on, you have to just explain like how it's leading Hargrave House to the solution, right? Whether that be sort of directly or indirectly, I think is fine.
In that case, it would start out with the tower itself, because now we know the ritual's coming based on the tower symbolizing, massive upheaval, destruction, and chaos. And now that we know the ritual is going to take place, we start thinking, where could it be? We see the trail of water heading north. We think that water might be important to that ritual. And so we start looking into bodies of water. When Mr. Ives describes the vision of a cat staring at the moon, we start thinking that water might be tidal. Then enter this
I-
spiral
I-
from the hangman makes us think we have to go underground. Like, I think that there is a path there.
I think there's a path there. I agree. The blue impenetrable door, using Brian's sort of like metaphor or symbolic approach, make that alludes to a body of water as well, right? So I think that probably explains that clue. I'm just marking off clues that have been accounted for here.
The moon suggests tides as well, right?
Yeah, I've marked that one.
So maybe the location's only accessible at low tide or high tide.
Oh,
or
it's something underground that's only accessible during, I guess it would be low tide, right? So that's interesting. Okay. I feel like we're getting there. I think that accounts for 5 of the 8 clues so far. The ones I'm not seeing yet are the color green, the number 6, and the prisms. Unless the prisms just refers to the Crystal Palace and that somehow is like the entrance, right? In which case, then we're okay.
And what if there's a hidden 6th reservoir under the Crystal Palace subway?
Oh, good. I like it. Now I like where you're going with this. Okay, this is good. This is good. That's prisms, and that's number 6. You got 7 of them so far. You're at +1. What about the color green? What does the green dream have to do with it?
The Crystal Palace has a lot of greenery. There's lots of gardens, and maybe it
was set up in the largest park.
Yep.
Green place in London.
Brian, did you have a thought?
I test out algae, thinking about chlorophyll and just sort of the creep of like a liquescent green as a counterpoint to burning fire.
I like that as well. Okay, so the green could possibly be both. It could just be another indication that it's the Crystal Palace, or at least confirming it, or it could have something to do with like the algae left over it when the water like comes out, right? Which would be quite interesting as well. Like it leaves a green
Slightly
slick,
different
you know?
twist. If we look at the people that the witches are seeking vengeance against, having burned them, if we look at the burning as carbonization black, the green is the counterpoint. The green is the resistance, the nature, the natural order that the people of wealth and power were subverting by burning witches.
I like that too. Yeah, it works on that symbolic level as well, or sort of metaphorical level. I think it's great. So, okay, so let's recap. We think that this is taking place in a secret reservoir beneath the Crystal Palace. All of the clues definitely create a path towards this. Some of them like literal, some of them more symbolic in nature. This reservoir is only accessible during low tide, so you have like kind of a window, like they have a window to do the ritual, and you have a window to stop it, right? You might be able to go there before they're even ready to do the ritual to stop them and destroy them. If you can't do it on the first night, you might be pushing towards the actual night of the ritual, in which case you definitely have to stop them that night, right? But knowing where it's going to take place is a big advantage for Hargrave House. So the tarot card, the tower, destruction, that is just what's going to happen to London. The trail of water indicates water is important, and maybe the northerly direction like was another like kind of indication of where this place is going to be found. Street cat staring at the moon indicates the tides. Mr. Turner, the green dream. We think that could be multiple things going on. The blue impenetrable door again symbolizes like water, and the number 6 indicates that we're making up a 6th reservoir, a 6th hidden reservoir in our fiction. The spiral means going down, and maybe there's even like a literal spiral staircase. And then the prisms would be reflective of the Crystal Palace. And so, yeah, this feels pretty good to me. Secret reservoir beneath the Crystal Palace. I like it.
I'm
hopefully,
imagining the
hopefully
visuals of the ritual.
yeah, hopefully some civil engineer who works in London is not going to comment on this video and tell us how off base we were, but you know, that person can get fucked.
Also, person, it's a secret. You don't know.
You don't know. It might be there. Yeah, go look. So
Go find the sun number 6 somewhere.
right, you know, that's great. Awesome. I love it. Okay, who wants to do the die roll? I mean, this is good. This was a really good answer to a question. It's the die roll's a +2. Whoever wants to do it.
Should I do it?
Go for it. You
Okay.
brought the coven upon us.
Oh, that's a 5 on the dice.
So a 7.
So 7, yeah.
Oh, it's correct. The opportunity is unlocked. The opportunity is resolve the threat by stopping the ritual and or destroying the coven. A 7 to 9 means it's going to be extremely dangerous to do. So if you want to dial down the danger level, you can all mark Janus Mask to bump it up to a 10. But if you're okay with the danger, let it ride.
Willoughby's really scared of witches and does not mind marking a mask at all to make this a little bit easier.
Do they have a special mask thing?
They do not. There is no special mask, part of the Janus Mask on the coven.
It depends. If other people want to mark it, I'll go along. Since I've dragged you along that path before, I will reciprocate. But otherwise, I like that it's dangerous.
Feels right for it to be, yeah, treacherous.
Okay. Well, if you have some dangerous witches, I also feel like we haven't really thus far had a really dangerous encounter. I might be misremembering that. But.
Well, the danger is always sort of implied, right? I mean, it's this is going to be more like trench warfare dangerous, right? Like you're going to be actually battling the witches along the way, right? And you may not be able to do it in one night. Know that. Like this may not be resolvable in one night. So just understand that. But you have your answer. Very good. Congratulations. Let's do the dusk phase and then we'll take a break. Okay. Let's take a look at our very nifty phase switcher. Oh, it's already ready to go. Resolve any playbook moves or custom moves that are resolved during the dusk phase. Do we have any dusk phase moves?
I can declare whether I'm doing night work.
You can indeed. Are you doing night work tonight? Let everybody else face the danger.
Right. I'm sorry, guys. I got to work tonight.
Have fun. Totally legit, by the way. That is not a bad answer. You could totally do that. You could be like, the city of London needs me. Sorry.
I don't know the answer. What do y'all think? Do we want more clues for future stuff, or do you want me there with my scalpel in hand to fend off witches?
Well, if we want to make it really tense, what we could do is go find the place and booby trap it and then use it to attack them on the actual night of the ritual. So you could do your night work and we could do our own night work.
I think it's very likely that we will meet at least 1 or 2 lookouts while we are there.
Think about the opportunities for you to get your hands in some guts while we're fighting witches.
That's true. Bring back some witch parts for my child.
That'd be interesting. Interesting turn of events. Okay, so you do a night work or not?
Am I the only one making a dusk choice here?
I don't know. Does anybody else have any dusk stuff? I think it's just you.
All right. Yeah, I'll go along. I'll join you on the cistern here and see what we find.
Indeed. Let's go to the next step, which is I pose a paint the scene question about Hargrave House. So this is where a lot of this conversation has probably been taking place in our fiction. And that's going to be, let's have comfort right now. The salon. What do you see in this room that makes it the most comfortable spot in the entire house?
Maybe one of those really long I can't remember what it's called, but it's like a really long sectional that's like leather and it has like those cool little old grooves to them, so it's just really comfortable to sit on, and it wraps around and then has like a coffee table or something in the front.
I think this might be a personal comfort for Willoughby, but in the salon is where the wet bar is, that kind of like little tiny cart full of just about anything. So whenever we're in here, I always find myself both distributing and occasionally sipping of beverages.
I think there's a ancient Greek style Klein there that is like a long couch, kind of like a settee with a headboard at the back, and Alexander has claimed that as his for completely unknowable reasons. And so he will always be found either lying on it or leaning against the back rest and just kind of comfortably reclined, and that's his seat.
Indeed.
Picturing like, Willoughby, fetch me some grapes. Now feed them to me.
Dr. Tagore, what makes it a comfy space?
The walls have just these gorgeous sort of Persian carpets that absorb the sound. So it's just a room that's quiet and tranquil, that you don't hear the noise from the street.
Fantastic.
Willoughby really likes the grapes thing. So maybe as Alexander's pontificating on different solutions, I'm just peeling them slowly, setting them.
So everybody gets to say what they're going to be doing during this night phase, what they hope to be doing during this night phase. I might have other plans. And then after everyone speaks, everyone gets to make one revision if they wish. Let's just go in the order of the sheet. So Willoughby, what are you doing tonight?
Well, I've taken 2 daily doses of applying lavender ash to my person under my clothes in hopes of steeling myself against these magical bitches. So basically, I think I will wait to have Alexander's plan, but I will be going along in it. Whether we booby trap or how we choose to interfere might be more of a conversation.
Going down to the sewers or the cistern. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Tagore.
I am picturing a filthy underground space where my hands are going to get dirty, and so I'm putting on some lovely calfskin gloves to keep my hands clean. And then I was just looking at my personal clutter items, sort of things I should bring along. Remind me the wax doll's hand from St. James Street haunting. That's just, does it have a purpose, or was it just sort of a souvenir? I don't recall if it had a specific effect.
Well, it was sort of I mean, it was used in the ritual, right? What it wasn't it like part of the ritual that was used to quiet the ghost, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, or something like it was.
Fill my medical kit, my little Gladstone bag, with some things that may be useful down here, some surgical tools. This astrolabe from a drowned sailor may come in handy. Just have a few things on hand that
yeah, you can always have any of this on hand. Yeah.
Right. And then I'm not always I don't see myself as a burly fist-to-fist fighter with witches. So I'm trying to think, how am I going to prove useful somehow while we're underground? So just trying to prepare myself in some way.
But you are going underground then.
I think so.
Mr. Janarios, what are you doing tonight?
He's going underground. He's not about to see Hargrave House be burned down by these villainous witches.
Mr. Turner?
I'm gonna go down and probably do a right.
Fantastic.
Actually, then I might edit. As was mentioned previously, one of my skills of being able to not quite separate the party, it might behoove me to go elsewhere.
Where do you want we go.
In that case, I think I might go and check out the pie shop just to like
Good.
snoop
Yeah.
around and see.
Yeah.
Because that's still cordoned off and there's not a lot of publicity, hopefully, because it's still on the.
Oh yes,
down low.
yeah. Scotland Yard is like they're literally not investigating it because they don't want to create a hysteria. So the shop is just like cold, empty. Yeah. So they reached out to Hargrave House. They never do that, but they did it this time because they don't want to cause a stir in the city.
So I will turn to Mr. Gennadios and say, I do have one or two things to finish, but I will be there when you need me.
Very well.
Fantastic. I love it. And I don't think we have any unresolved Janus mask prompts at this point. So let's talk about the unseen. Tonight's unseen is going to be... Tonight's unseen is going to be the Belfort murder. Charles and Nancy Belfort have been married for 10 years and they absolutely despise each other. Tonight is the night when one of them will finally snap. The first question is for everyone. I'm going to assign the next three, which is going to be Fraser for the second one here. And, oops, that was a mistake. Let's undo that. But Fraser, you've got the first or number two, I should say. Drew, you've got number three, and Sarah, you have the resolution. Let's take a 5-minute break. The poor benighted Belforts. Let's paint the scene. As we look around the Belforts' home, how do we know their love for one another died long ago?
There's no pictures of them together on the mantle. It's always one or the other.
Can I add to that? Because I had a very similar idea.
Please do.
So you know those Victorian era pictures where one person's in a chair and the other one's kind of lovingly got their hand on the shoulder. Those are in every room, but the frames are like turned face down on the top of the piano, or like tucked behind a cabinet, or tossed into the rubbish bin. Like they're in every room, but they're all averted.
And the only ones we can see are the ones where it's just paintings and portraits of one of them. Yeah, that's pretty good. Drew?
I think there's a very clear division of like whose is whose. Like the food is divided on either side of the pantry. The wife's clothes are in a completely different closet. The dresser is very clearly divided. There's like a DMZ between her side and his side. They don't want to have any kind of interaction with each other that they don't have to.
Sarah?
When the staff answers the door for callers, there's a very unique protocol of who are you here to see? Oh, wait, they might be in this room, so I have to rearrange the other person so they don't see who else is visiting. There's a song and dance with that.
I love it. So good. Fabulous. Let's start at the pie shop. This is in Shoreditch. And this particular part of Shoreditch is kind of how it sounds, Shoreditch. That's an evocative word, right? It looks like it sounds. And the pie shop itself is fairly unremarkable on the outside. The main sort of feature that makes it sticks out, obviously it's called Figs Pigs, but it has that like pig shape that is almost like their brand logo, right? That they stamp on the actual, or they take a stamp of it, a little dough stamp of it, and put it on top of the Figs Pig pie, the one that contained the tattoo skin, by the way, that Mr. Turner ate.
The wooden sign over the door is in the shape of the same pig. That's
Absolutely.
What we're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And yeah, perfect. And you're able to go in, no problem, Willoughby. I think there might be like a Bobby on the beat, but all you have to do is just like say who you are, that you're from Hargrave House, and they'll be like, okay, we'll go ahead. I've been alerted to that you're allowed to go in. I want to talk about the front entrance, the front counter of Figs Pigs. There are a few small tables and chairs, a quite strong smell of grease and burnt flour, and there's a plaster statue of a pig in a chef's hat, kind of situated in one corner of the room. Let's do a paint the scene question. This is for everybody. If you, as home viewers, right? How do you know that this was a popular pie shop when it was open, like from just the front counter area?
The wooden floors have that carved, clearly walked path of this is the line in which you stand across the counter, and all the customers move in the same path, is ground down. So you can tell, well worn.
Thank you.
There's like an inordinate amount of rubbish bins, like 6 or 7 or something like that.
Thank you.
The display case at the front has had an extension put onto it on the side and on the top, and those are empty now.
The brass handrails that kind of run the perimeter are just festooned with those sort of oily fingerprints from thousands of people passing through.
I love it. It's fairly dark, Willoughby. There's a little bit of light coming in from the front window from this gas light or the gas lamp outside. What do you do?
I was seeing if I had any candles in my personal quarters, and I do not. Do I see any lanterns that I could light? Something behind the counter, perhaps, if I walk out behind?
Take an information move just to see. You might see that or you might see something else. But make it with probably just, let me take a look at your conditions and see if there's if any of them might imply your state of mind here. Turned stomach, I'm gonna say with composure. So.
That's 10.
Very good. You don't see a lantern or anything like that. No candle. But as you are looking around behind the front counter, you do see a dog collar and leash sized for a very wide neck. That's a clue. I shall type that in. Clue for you.
I do not touch it. In fact, I don't think I'll be touching anything in the shop directly, as I am still quite, I'm in a state about all of the blood at the Arch exhibit, and I'm second guessing the reason I'm in here alone by myself and just kind of feeling queasy.
Well, I think the turned stomach condition, it may not even be about like the exhibit anymore as much as it's just a general commentary on your view of things right now, right? I mean,
it just keeps happening.
Yeah, yeah. Fabulous. Let's cut away from that to a scene somewhere underground. We see a trio of black-veiled witches muttering words. And they raise up puppets on strings. And they're moving the puppets around as they mutter their words. You all have not left Hargrave House yet, Mr. Turner, Mr. Gennadios, Dr. Tagore. Willoughby's been gone for some time. You are all just now getting out because that's harder to do when Willoughby's not around. And I'm sure a fair amount of time was spent looking for a jacket or something. And before you can go out, you look out the window. Now, I will tell you that, you know, Hargrave House sits on a square, right? There are other mansions on the square. And you will see in the darkness, perhaps with a mist, sort of illuminated mist, sort of outlining them, you will see a number of people, silhouettes of figures standing in a row quite still in front of Hargrave House, probably about a dozen people. Mr. Gennadios, what do you do?
I don't suppose he recognizes any of them.
Not from this distance. You'd have to go outside and get face to face with them.
Well, he'll do that. He will open the front door and come to stand on the stoop and just look out at them, assuming that they're there for him.
They take a step, each of them in unison. They take a few steps forward. And then they all sort of grunt and cry out as strings burst from their arms and shoulders and backs, and the strings burst out and hang vertically in the air. You can see them in the mist. And now these people all lurch forward as if controlled by some invisible force. Dr. Tagore, what do you do?
I am kind of looking to the city streetlights, any telegraph poles, things like that, looking for there's a rational means for these mannequin puppetry lines. They are somehow being manipulated in a way that's natural, physical, and I kind of handle my scalpel and I could cut down one, but I don't know if I can cut down the lines on 12 beings. This is a bit more fight than I've got in me, but there's a rational explanation behind this.
While you're having this rational thought, you hear glass shattering from the rear of the house. Mr. Turner, what do you do?
My initial thought is to, well, I don't think I can do it though. I was thinking of doing a beacon in the dark, since it would call a superior entity to me, perhaps to shatter them.
I don't know if you have the opportunity. You have to walk the streets of London to trigger the move. Yeah.
Right. Could I possibly have, what do I have in my personal quarters? We have established that the lavender ash in my witch's cupboard repels witches.
Mhm.
Perhaps I'll try to put that around the house interior to block out an area for
So
us.
you're trying to make a safe space basically in the house, like a panic room.
Yeah.
A sort of cosmic panic room. I love it.
Or I guess we could just retreat to the ritual chamber, really.
That's true too. Yeah, because you'd be more powerful there, right? So
Yeah.
everybody would be if they use presence or sensitivity.
So maybe I'll yell to the ritual chamber and make my way there.
We'll come back to the ritual chamber in a moment. For now, let's go to the Belforts. Who's next on the thing here? Looks like it's Fraser. Fraser, narrate a scene in which Charles Belfort does something to get under Nancy Belfort's skin.
I think we see a scene where Charles is in his own room, because I'm sure they have separate quarters from what we've established. And he takes his pile of laundry and takes a bottle of perfume and spritz it on it, and then waits for the maid to collect it, knowing that the maid will obviously relay the information to his wife.
Like he's having an affair.
Yeah, he's exactly.
He's manufacturing an affair just to get
Yeah.
under her skin. Yeah, it's good. I love it. So good. Well, Willoughby, an interesting clue. There are more places to search here. There in the pie shop, you have several options basically. There's the front counter, which you're in right now. There's the kitchen, which is the space just behind that. The Figs have an apartment. They have a flat upstairs where they live. And then there's a basement. which is probably totally safe to go to in the middle of the night. So what would you like to do?
I've had such wonderful luck with basements prior. I will head upstairs to the apartments. I'd like to make note if there are any mementos or anything hung on the walls or any family memorabilia that might be in a family establishment. You know, they might have pictures on the walls, like the ribbon they cut at the beginning of the pie, you know, that sort of thing.
Well, let's talk about
Just
it.
for context.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So the upstairs flat is several rooms with comfortable looking beds, very delicate cream colored wallpaper, a pleasing smell of lemon and mint, and a paint the scene question for everyone. The Figs, despite their proclivities, were a loving family, are a loving family. Looking around, how do we know this?
I like there's a post with notch marks of the growth of the children marked.
Cut with Oberth's blade, probably.
Probably. And also Patrick's might stop at a certain point because he maybe started crawling around on all fours at a certain point. So.
Patrick's notches descend rather than
they go lower, yeah. What else do we think? Brian, Drew, Sarah?
I'm picturing a very well-worn set of family china, kind of the gravy boat, a bowl for each member of the family, the soup tureen that's been like the gilded, that's the right word, gilded silver, has just sort of worn off from frequent use with family dinners.
I'm sure there's a different word from gilded, since gilded means gold, but I don't know what it is. So, awesome. Drew or Sarah?
I think just the fact that it is such a clean and tidy home and that everything seems to have a place. Everybody has their own spaces. This is not the chaos one would expect from a family of butchers, the pun intended in every aspect there.
And there is a family photo album of them through the years, and they all look, unlike a lot of Victorian photos where everyone looks dour and stiff, they look like they're enjoying each other's company.
So Willoughby, you're taking all this in. What do you do?
I would like to poke through the drawers and things and find any personal effects that may have been left behind in the urgency for the family to escape the police.
Take a do the information move with reason.
Sorry, I'm muted. That's 10 on the dice, and I'm on the wrong screen. +1 to reason, I think.
So yes, 11.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I had a technology meltdown momentarily. 11.
Bump it to a 12 if you want to get Theodora.
I would actually like to do that because I would like to mark that mask.
Go for it. Go ahead and mark it for now, and I'll take a look at the clues in a moment. We'll come back to the clues. Hargrave House is under assault. Something is breaking in from the back. Mr. Turner, at least, is heading towards the ritual chamber, which I imagine like in a kind of basement space in the house. Mr. Genadios, Dr. Tagore, are you following?
I'm not staying here alone.
Mr. Genadios and Dr. Tagore, since you were the ones who actually saw more up close the marionette strings bursting forth from the bodies of these individuals, how does it make you feel? I'm curious to get your perspectives on this and give you a condition.
I'm thinking about the child and my work trying to full tendons, part to part to make sure that all the ligaments connect. And again, trying to mix this sort of, I'm a man of science, and yet I've seen some shit.
I'm going to give you fascinated. That could be a real problem coming up. So
Right.
take fascinated. Mr. Gennadios, how do you feel?
I'm trying to decide whether that would be just one of the many really weird things he has seen over the years, or if this would stand out. And I think it would, but he's more like mildly concerned about what this might mean for them than like actively disgusted, or like he doesn't care about the people that had this happen to them.
Fair enough. I shall let your coldness stand. I don't think you need a condition. So, Mr. Turner, once you all get into the ritual room, what are you doing?
If they're coming in the house, what I would like to do is essentially do a ritual where they rapidly age and die and turn to dust.
Okay, we'll talk about that. Sarah or Willoughby?
Well, I have a wonderful reason to show up next to Mr. Turner's side with perhaps just the very thing you might need. But I don't know, like, shall I just insert myself here? I didn't know if there was a.
You can wait until you can wait until the real sort of dramatic moment. I'll give you that dramatic moment. Don't worry about that. You'll know when. Since this is your first time in the ritual room, Dr. Tagore and Mr. Gennadios, you have to answer the paint the scene, which is, as you look around, how do you know that dark rites were performed here?
Just layers of blood stain on the various ritual parts. If there's a little like table or whatever, it's been going on for a while.
And scuff marks on the floor that are not the norm for any furniture you would have moved. Like, there are scuff marks, but they are in shapes and patterns, and they weren't always furniture that was being dragged.
The ritual room has a powerful effect on you, but just by being in it, especially when Mr. Turner's about to do magic in it, you both go ahead and mark the tainted condition, or note the tainted condition. Mr. Turner, if you don't have it already, you get it again. And so the ritual, let's talk about that. I assume this is rites of salt and smoke. The effects, are these, what is what you want within the effects here? Bar a place or portal, that as a last desperate move, you can just keep them out. Trapping them you could do. You could banish them, so I think that would work if you banish them. So any of those would probably be okay. I don't know if you're going to be able to wither them away.
Could we trap them in time so we could go about our business and just leave them there?
I doubt it. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I think this night is pretty well consumed by this.
Okay. So probably a banishing then.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right move. Before we do the move, just tell us the kind of, what's the sort of initial preparations here?
Oh, maybe there's almost like a furnace that's in this room, and I'm putting different ingredients into the furnace before I light it, and so it'll pipe it into the house and disperse it into, the mouths of these creatures.
I love it. It's great. Mr. Gennadios, you're all there. Mr. Turner is making his preparations. This is all going on. The two of you are having this sort of, you're just there, basically. And I think Mr. Gennadios, while Mr. Turner is making his preparations, one of the marionettes has managed to get in and has managed to get down here. You can hear it coming down the steps. What do you do? You can hear these halting steps, and it occasionally stumbles because it doesn't have like great control over itself.
He is going to take out his Renaissance era signet ring, and it is like big and thick, and he's going to just slip it on his middle finger and kind of clench his fist and then walk out to the hall to meet it.
I love it. Yeah, you see this thing coming down. It has a knife in its hand. It appears to be like a, I don't know, like a homeless person or just some street person, right? And based off their kind of dingy, coat and trousers. And it just sort of is like lunging at you, like awkwardly, but with purpose. What do you do?
Hoping
Was that directed
the
at me? I'm sorry.
awkwardness,
Mr. Janadios.
hoping the awkwardness is a good enough opening for him to just lean away from the blade and sock them in the face with his makeshift iron knuckle.
This is going to be night move. You are literally exposed, so I'm going to tap into feeling exposed. But if you mark the signet ring, that cancels it out. And what's the worst that could happen here?
He'll get gutted.
You'll get gutted, and I think basically it creates an opening for the other ones to get into the ritual room. So let's have that roll. It'll be straight dice if you mark the signet ring, and plus vitality. It could possibly be sensitivity because it's supernatural. What do I want to do here? I'll let you have it with sensitivity. So.
Okay, that's 10.
Nice. Success. Describe how you defeat the thing.
He kind of has a wolfish grin as he just smacks it in the side of the head with his ringed fist, and as it drops to the ground limp, he kind of shakes out his hand and says, "Haven't done that in a while."
Very good. Let me take a look at one note real quick before I continue with Dr. Tagore, because I do have something for Dr. Tagore as well. Oh, good. The scene cuts away. We see one of the black-veiled Coven members. They are holding a doll, one of their puppets, except this one is dressed like Dr. Tagore. Dr. Tagore, tell us about your fashion. What are you normally wearing?
I usually have my vermilion waistcoat on. Favor kind of a dark colored jacket just to disguise the gore that gets on it once in a while.
It looks like you. It has the vague resemblance of you, and this Coven member has a long, like, sharp nail on their pinky finger, and they begin carving something into the forehead of the doll. And you feel a sudden, very intense, searing pain in your head. Dr. Tagore, what do you do? It causes you to cry out.
Sorry, what do I do that causes me to cry out?
No, it causes you to cry out. It's
Okay,
very painful. What do you do in response?
Got it. I missed one thing. Can I see this person from the ritual room?
No,
or is this
no, you just feel it.
You know that's happening. Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm gonna just put myself in a situation where I just need to be assisted here. Like that I grab my scalpel and start trying to like slice away some invisible tendril of pain, like crumpled on the floor and screaming in pain.
I love this as a scene. Night phase. What could go wrong here? What are you scared of, Dr. Tagore?
I'm horribly disfigured, among other things.
Yeah. I think it's worse than that. Like, your hand is going to be doing the carving that the witch is doing on the doll. Because you have the tainted condition, I'm putting you at disadvantage. However, I think the roll is sensitivity. And what's the result of the ritual chamber, Mr. Turner? How does sensitivity affect it?
It increases sensitivity, but maybe just for me.
No, I think it's for anyone who's in there, if I'm not mistaken.
Presence and sensitivity scores are increased by 1 while in the chamber. No maximum.
Yeah, so your sensitivity is at 3. So you'll be rolling sensitivity, Dr. Tagore, but you have a good bonus, but it's at disadvantage because of the condition. If you
Remind me disadvantage, you roll an extra die and take the 2 lowest.
2 lowest, yeah. And if you want to press, and you can choose to do something different if you don't like the result of you carving this into your head, right? If you want to avoid that.
Let's just say disadvantage really hurt me there because I rolled a 2, a 3, and then a 1.
Woof, woof. So even with
what
the
are my other
plus,
options?
even with the +3, it's only 6, right? So
Right.
Yeah. Mr. Turner, I think you're aware of this because Mr. Gennadios is fighting off the marionette. But basically, I'm going to take over the fiction. Dr. Tagore falls down, screaming in pain, grabs the scalpel, and just begins carving at his fucking forehead. There is blood going everywhere. You even see bone. And it's Sally's scalpel, right? So it's really good. It's very, very sharp. Mr. Turner, Dr. Tagore is going to kill himself right now if you don't do something, if you don't intervene at this moment. Unless, Dr. Tagore, you want to spend a Janus mask to get a better result. It'll bump you to a 7 and 9.
I'm not against that, but if Fraser, if you got some good fiction, I can go either way.
My first thought is that you're using the wrong thing. You need to use an anathema to cut the rope and not a scalpel to cut your ties. But
What's in the anathema? I don't know what that is.
Like a ritual knife.
A ritual knife, yeah. I mean, Dr. Tagore, Janus mask saves you from this completely. But if you, if Mr. Turner doesn't make a move, you're going to die. So, Mr. Turner, what are you doing? Or if
sure. I'm happy to do
mask.
a Janus mask thing.
So let's have the pre-Janus mask version of this then. You take the scalpel and you begin like cutting into your forehead. Blood is going everywhere. We see bone, and eventually it cuts away and the witch plunges her nail into the wax doll, and you plunge the scalpel several inches deep into your head, and your hand falls to the side, blood pouring out, quite dead. But if you mark the Janus mask, we have a different timeline. So
yeah, I'm picturing, at a certain point, the blood on my hands. I have this fascination with keeping my hands clean, and I love digging my hands in gore. That seeing that much of my own blood on my hands kind of gives that like, ooh, and fascination with the gore, which might prevent me from digging further into my own skull. And from there, either a flashback or a flash forward with Janus mask.
Yeah. Well, make your choice, and then we'll do a different result since your new result will be 7 to 9.
Let's do the darkened threshold, and then which I narrate a scene in which I destroy a professional rival.
Very good. Do you want to cut to that now, or do you want to wait?
Can I have like a 60-second thing to try and
we come back to
figure out who my rival was?
We come back to it. Yeah. Well, for now, we'll just show you struggling with the scalpel, right, on the ground. Mr. Turner, how do you feel having brought all this upon Hargrave House? Ultimately.
Yeah. Jeez. I would like to say that I felt bad, but I'm not sure that I do. Ironically, I think that if Willoughby was here, I would feel worse about it because I think I have a deeper connection with Willoughby. I think I just feel I feel anger in the sense that they're violating my space, but not so much that harm is coming to my friends. Like, how dare they encroach upon my territory, basically.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's go to the Belforts for now. All right, so back to Belforts. I think this is Drew narrating a scene of how Nancy humiliates Charles.
I think it's at a child's birthday party or celebration. It's one of Charles's nephews, and so it's a big family thing. All of Charles' siblings and relatives are there, and Nancy has had a bit too much sherry and cordial, and as the main attraction gets rolled out, it's a puppet theater with a professional puppeteer behind, and as everyone is quiet and watching, Nancy just leans over and loudly says, "Doesn't it remind you, Charles, of how you had me truss you up that time? How you'd dance on your strings as I indulged your little peccadillos?" And then she'll get up and go get more sherry, and everyone is just staring at Charles.
Very good, very good. Willoughby, I owe you a clue and a mastermind clue, right? Get you both. Yeah. Let's take the clues first. So, you find a strange thing in one of the rooms inside what appears to be like a box, maybe a box that would normally hold like buttons or something. Inside of it, when you open it up, there is a very large collection of torn opera tickets, like torn, like they've been used. And that's the clue for now. Let me take a moment to write that down real fast. And take a look at the void clues, or not void clues, damn it, mastermind clues. I'm running both Brindlewood Bay and the Between right now, so like in every session, I'm like mixing up terms. It's very annoying. Let me take a look at the ones that we have already. I don't want to repeat something. Interestingly, next to that box of torn opera tickets, there is a beautiful pair of long sapphire blue opera gloves. A subtle hint that Theodora works in these spaces. What do you do after you collect this clue?
After seeing what happy, friendly sort of family space it was up here in the apartment, I'm curious to go back into the kitchen. And again, very carefully not touching anything, but looking for any evidence of their process and how these pies were literally processed.
Let's have another paint the scene. It is the kitchen, and you see initially bundles of herbs and garlic hanging from the ceiling. There's an enormous brick oven. There's a light dusting of flour still on most of the surfaces. Again, a little bit more about the Fig family. The Figs enjoy working together as a family. What do we see that confirms this?
Gosh, it's really hard to empathize with cannibals. It's really hard.
That's why I wrote it that way.
I think there's a gramophone in the kitchen, and people attending the shop used to hear them singing along to it from the back.
There's a set of apron hooks with aprons of various size, but it's kind of got carved into the little wood at the top is like the family initials and little tiny cute portraits of each family member, and then their apron is hanging neatly below that.
Awesome.
Oh, there's well-worn stools for the kids, boosting them.
Oh, like when they were little. Yeah, they're adults now, but yeah.
I think that we might see one or two notes, like everybody in a kitchen tends to have their station of where they are in the process of making these pies. And so we might see like little notes of like, have a good day, chin up, love, like little notes to each other.
Who do we like more, the Figs or the Belforts at this point? It's an interesting question, huh? I think it's good for your scene, Willoughby. We'll get some minutes, maybe give you a chance to dive in at the last minute later on with Hargrave House. Oh boy. So Dr. Tagore, we need to resolve your situation. So your result's now going to be a 7 to 9. So that means you fundamentally succeed at preventing the magic from harming you. I might give you a condition, I haven't decided yet, but basically I'm technically supposed to narrate it, but I'm actually more interested in seeing you do it. Like, how do you stop the magic? Like, why do you stop this?
I talked about being sort of visually obsessed with the blood on my own hands and the use of the scalpel, and it's reminding me of when I destroyed my professional rival. For the moment, either I'm thinking leave them unnamed or like make them Charles Belfort's cousin or something tangential to the story.
That's actually against the rules. There cannot be a
right. And that was the one thing I'm thinking.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to tie into the night scene directly. Yeah. So, but played by the same actor who's playing Charles Belfort now. Anyway, so this professional rival, they're another anatomist who is interested in revivification, and they're ahead of me in progress. And I am so desperate to make sure, like, even though we meet and collaborate and share ideas, I realize they are so far ahead of me. They will successfully bring life back to dead flesh before I will. And so I go have a talk with Scotland Yard, and I pull a few strings, and I ask them to intervene and make sure he's out of his lab one night. And I go in with my scalpel and I just completely disassemble his creature and slice into its forehead at a certain point to crack open the cranium and make sure the corpus callosum is severed, so his just cannot work.
Nice, good. So how do you beat back the magic?
I felt like this, all I really got is I've become so overwhelmed with my own memory that I dropped the scalpel.
Okay, good.
Really
Yeah,
that's magic good. Back more than just not murdered myself.
Yeah, I like that. How does it make you feel?
Ooh, well, I was already feeling tainted and fascinated. I was trying to play into those. There's definitely a measure of guilt that had I not taken that path, I would have been able to share further knowledge with this colleague who became my competition, and that maybe I would be further along in my own progress on rebuilding the child.
Take the guilty condition. That's your complication for the 7 to 9. Mr. Gennadios, after you put down this marionette, you hear more of them coming. What do you do? You might have to hold them off in time for Mr. Turner to finish the ritual.
I think he'll kind of turn back into the room and say, we're expecting more company. Anything you can do about that, Mr. Turner?
I'm working as fast as I can, and I'm like throwing stuff into the furnace and some, like rummaging around in the cabinet.
You hear steps, heavy steps on the stairs. You hear more crashing upstairs as the marionettes are doing a number on Hargrave House as they clumsily pile through spaces. It's a zombie flick right now in a way, right? Mr. Turner, do you want to go through your witch's cupboard?
Sure, yeah, I have additional uses, or I guess other people have additional uses too. So
You do,
maybe,
yeah. There's 5 total additional uses. Anybody can use them, including you.
right. So maybe even Drew could grab something to help.
Oh, yeah. Assuming the cupboard is down there, I think that's probably pretty good.
I
Like
think the moment that you have that thought, Willoughby is standing behind Mr. Gennadios with a brace of pistols.
Good. Oh, I love it. That's good. Let's have that scene. That's really good, actually, because I think what I'm kind of suggesting here is that Mr. Gennadios has to hold them off while Mr. Turner finishes the ritual, right? And I love the idea of Willoughby just bursting in to the basement somehow with guns drawn. Give us the scene leading up to that, Willoughby. When you were like arriving on the scene, you see the house under assault. How do you get down to where they're at?
As the only servant in the house, I have had ample time to explore the ins and outs, and through the cellar, past the third door, and then back through this cupboard, there's a secret entrance that is into the kitchen and then down the stairs to the ritual room, and just like doing the thing.
Yeah, I love it. So basically, yeah, I think you do have to hold them off. You have to hold them off until Mr. Turner can complete the ritual. Let's just have this sort of like preparation, and then we'll hold them off next time for the last round. Mr. Gennadios, what do you do to kind of prepare to like sort of keep the marionettes away? If anything, maybe you just let Willoughby do it all.
He'll take a pistol and without much commentary, he'll just kind of nod at Willoughby, like, of course you're here when we need you. That is your job. And then, yeah, he'll prepare to hold it back or hold them back.
And Willoughby, you've already described what you do. So, Mr. Turner, I guess, do you want to get something out of the cupboard for the ritual just to give you that die bonus?
Yeah, I'm thinking something like maybe like frankincense, like something that will, when broken into the furnace, will dissipate up into the bowels of the house and disseminate.
Fraser, are you trying to use items from your personal quarters? Is that?
Yeah, so the witch's cupboard item goes into the personal quarters. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just making a new personal
They're making
item.
a new.
Yeah. Yeah, and the closest thing I can think of is the frankincense, I think.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it's interesting because that's a distinctly religious thing, right? And you are a sort of anti-religious, like kind of working.
Right. Oh yeah, because rites of salt and passage, I'm calling a dark entity, basically, right?
Yeah, and you do it with perversion of Christian rituals.
Right.
So what does that look like?
Well, for a perversion of the thing that I'm thinking of, maybe it would be like I wish I knew more about theology, but like you know how a Christian rite is to take in the body of Jesus, you know, with the crackers and the juice or whatever, something like that, but it would be the body of like
the grape Kool-Aid, right? Minnesotans.
maybe, probably the blood of a dark entity is the thing that I
Oh, interesting.
imbibe.
Yeah,
And then
good.
similarly, to call back to the last episode, I probably spew it from my mouth into the furnace. And then with the fire, it like becomes a dark smoke that goes out into the house.
You can go ahead and add the frankincense to your personal quarters and mark off a use of your witch's cupboard. I love I was doing another drop dead gorgeous joke with the we Lutherans use Kool-Aid for the blood of Christ. Such a great line.
Well, instead of the frankincense, can it be the blood of the
Oh, sure.
dark
Yeah,
entity?
you can, because you can pull anything you want out of the cupboard. So. Fabulous. Let's do the bell for it. The choice is, who does the choice belong to? Sarah, Nancy, or Charles? Who finally snaps? And then describe the murder.
It's Nancy who finally cracks. She finds out when she is going through the correspondence of the day and opening letters that she got a notice from the opera house that her box tickets were canceled without her knowledge. And she finally loses it and runs screaming through the house, looking for her husband and an explanation of why he would take away the only pleasure he provides for her. And he says something insanely rude, and she just stabs him in the head with the letter opener over and over again. He falls to the ground and she continues stabbing until she hits bone.
Fantastic. I want night moves from both of you, Willoughby and Mr. Gennadios. We'll start with.
Do the guns allow us advantage in this situation?
They do indeed, yes. They get marked, but they do. Okay. So what's the worst that could happen, Willoughby? What are you scared of?
That the witches will get a hold of me somehow, that interacting with these puppets gives them access to me as a person and I become a marionette.
It's worse than that, and you turn on Mr. Gennadios. If you're cool with this, roll some dice. Let's do, it's sensitivity no matter what. So, 2d6 plus sensitivity. And
okay, increased.
I do.
You're close enough to the ritual chamber to the +1. Yeah.
Well, even without it, I rolled a 10 on the dice, and so I am victorious. There's nothing that can stop me from preventing them from getting to Mr. Gennadios.
Fair enough. I love it. So you get a bonus as well. The bonus is, I'll let Drew decide whether I'll let kind of Drew be the arbiter here, but the bonus is you do such a good job. You do such a good job that Mr. Gennadios, I don't even need a roll from Drew. That's the bonus.
Hey, that okay.
You both get to be in the scene, but one roll is it. But you succeed. Describe how you hold the marionettes off.
Willoughby would position themselves kind of in front of Mr. Gennadios, lower, so we're kind of in a covering situation, and down the hallway we just keep maiming these marionettes with bullets, and Willoughby, not wanting to murder completely innocent people, does try to like wing a shoulder or something like that.
Give us some, Mr. Gennadios. Give us your part of the scene.
He will move down the hall with Willoughby, but behind at a sensible distance, and just be shooting over Willoughby's shoulder. And he'll just keep saying, he'll like provide a bit of backseat driving, like, on your left, watch out for that knife. Don't get yourself killed, Willoughby. You've still much to do to prove yourself useful.
I think technically on the dice you didn't. Oh, sorry. I think technically on the dice you didn't actually get a 12. You got like an 11. But but because you were kind of defending Mr. Gennadios too, I kind of liked the power of the scene, so I kind of leaned into it. But good. I love it. It's great. It's so good. That action is going on, and it's fantastic. Dr. Tagore, you're kind of like in a weird space right now. Like you don't have a lot to do, but I am curious, just like, what are you doing to support everybody else in the scene?
Oh, to support them. I'm still picturing myself kind of not extremely effective, kneeling on the floor, blood all over the place. And as Willoughby comes in, six guns a-blazing, like with a bloody finger being like, there's another one over there. And then from Willoughby, and then I'm just like fall over.
I love it. I love it. So let's do Rights of Salt and Smoke. You've already adequately set it up, Mr. Turner. So let's just have the die roll. You're going to be at regular advantage here, but you're going to be at advantage because you're going to mark the blood, I assume, right?
Yeah.
And you have a +1 on sensitivity, making it a 3. Actually, this is presence because you're contacting the dark entity, so it's 2. But because you still get the +1, but it's presence. And because in Rights of Salt and Smoke, it could be either. Let's have the dice. Let's see how it goes.
Okay, so I am rolling 3 dice.
3 dice, take the 2 highest and add 2. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, 8. So 10, because presence would be boosted by 1.
Yep, because its sensitivity and presence are increased in the space.
Yeah.
And Rights of Salt and Smoke can be presence or sensitivity in the roll. So, I love it though. I think it's great. Oh no, it is sensitivity. I guess I changed that. Okay, well in any case, you're at 10+. So let's have the narration. Like you totally get rid of the marionettes. What does it look like?
Yeah. So I imbibe this blood, and you see like the white veins going amongst my whole body, and I think right when like I'm holding it in my mouth, and I think my eyes start to glow a little bit, and then that's when I spew it into the furnace flames, and instead of blackness, maybe it's like white smoke that filters out through the furnace, and it goes like at a very accelerated rate, and basically like fumigates the house in a matter of like a minute or 2 or something. And we see the white smoke being imbibed by the people, and it sort of expels them.
Does it like break the magic and they just like become their normal selves and leave, or do they like physically, like are they magically forced to leave?
I assume that essentially they would be, I think I'm basically allowing the dark entities to possess them.
Oh, very good. Interesting. But in any case, they're gone. And so ends the night phase, the eventful night phase. Let's take a 5-minute break and we'll do dawn. That was a very exhilarating night phase, I thought. I enjoyed the intensity of it. Yeah, it was good. Dawn. A threat was not resolved, so there are no rewards to collect. However, Dr. Tagore, there are maybe a couple of bodies of marionettes in the house. If you want to harvest you can harvest a body part if you wish.
A body part, all right.
Yeah, pick a body part and then give us a little flashback to why it reminds you of your sister.
Ooh. Let us go with the blood here. That I'm scraping up some of the Mr. Turner's sputum, perhaps, that didn't land in the furnace, commingled with some droppings of witch blood, commingled with a bit of my own blood, sort of this amalgam of multiple bloods. I'm sorry, what was the question? You said give us a flashback to...
Per the move, it says... when you acquire, it says when you acquire a body part for the child, check it off from the list below and narrate a brief, pleasant memory of the person you lost. that is triggered by holding the part in your hands.
All right, so what's the pleasantry with blood?
Good luck.
Right. Let's go with this. Go with remember my character's Bengali. You know the red paste that you'll put on your forehead as a cheap dot for kind of a good luck in travel. Remembering when my sister and I parted, let's say I was going to boarding school and she smeared the red paste onto my forehead as a like, I'll see you again soon, brother. And I picked up my little satchel and away I went to school.
I love it. Good. Let's do Dawn questions. Okay, let's start with Willoughby. You all did answer a question. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do I have the opportunity to narrate my Mask of the Past before we answer those questions?
Oh, yeah, you can. That's okay. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, do it now.
I have to narrate a flashback of an event that eventually led to me being forced into servitude. Prior to my knowing Mr. Gennadios, I lived a relatively wealthy and independent life as a thief about town in London. But my parentage, I had an estate out in the country where I grew up, so I was always fairly well off. And I fancied myself a little bit of a gentleman thief. And just a few months ago, I learned of this exquisite art collector who had some very rare pieces in a house that seemed to have no staff or anybody watching it at any given time. And I thought it was a very good idea to break into Hargrave House and steal from Mr. Gennadios. There was a Greek relic that I had a line on for a buyer. And unfortunately, in the process of doing my second story work, crawling in, I had bad intel and I found not only Mr. Gennadios, but then his old factotum burst into the room, surprised to see the two of us there. Obviously, Mr. Gennadios was furious, and as the old factotum was not able to prevent this intrusion, I was offered's a strong word, I may have been compelled into service as a replacement.
Very, very interesting. Very interesting indeed. Let's take a look at Dawn questions now. So, yes, you did answer a question, so you get the credit for that one. So you can mark an XP there, Willoughby. Threat did not get resolved. Did you experience an echo in the night? Yes, you did several, I think, especially at the end there. There were a couple, the opera gloves, the stabbing, Nancy stabbing Charles in the forehead. So you get an experience point there. Did you demonstrate obsequious behavior towards your employer in front of others? Not as much. There was maybe something implied in that last scene, but did you
The implication I was trying to go for was I was blushing after he told me that I shouldn't die. And I was very subtly expressing some potential latent sexuality there.
I like that one. Yeah, you could take the second one. I think that comes through. The first one is maybe I would like to have seen more obsequious behavior, I think.
Willoughby did put themselves between me and the oncoming puppets.
Was it obsequious though?
I wasn't being overly servile in that moment,
yeah,
so much
that's
as it just was
servility is
me.
the key there. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Curious about that though. Drew played this as verbally you said something in the veins of just essentially directing Mr. Willoughby, like, watch out, there's a knife over here on the floor. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't really read for me, but I think the second one is good. Okay. So did you mark all your XP that you're entitled to?
Into it now.
Okay, awesome. Let's go to Dr. Tagore. Did the hunters answer a question? Yes. Resolve a threat? No. Did you do an echo in the night, Dr. Tagore?
There was a letter opener that got stabbed into a husband and I stabbed my own head, so I'm gonna say yes.
So the thing about the letter opener is that Sarah did the letter opener, right? Like, did you introduce something as a player? Like,
Oh, so the only option I had was that paint the scene then.
or something from the Hunter scene that referenced any of the Belfort murder scenes. Yeah, it can go.
Sorry,
both
maybe I
directions.
don't still quite understand Echo in the Night. So I thought if we took an action which matches something from the Belfort murders,
or vice versa.
or
So
vice versa.
yeah, so basically, just you work in something from the main scene that is reminiscent of the Belfort murder scenes, anybody's, or you narrate something in the Belfort murder scene that's reminiscent of the Hunter
But is it
scenes.
dependent on who narrates it?
Yeah, you get credit for it if you did it.
I
Yeah, you
narrate
get the
it.
XP.
Got it. All right. I felt like I had, but I'll have to think back further on it. I felt like Sarah wrapped it up too tidily with the letter opener, but
Just think on it, I guess. Did you put your hands in a pile of guts and love every moment of it?
It was my own blood. I don't know that I loved it.
I'm into it. I think between that and the blood you were sort of scraping up in various places, I'll take it. And did you dismiss the possibility of a supernatural explanation? Yes, you did. That with the strings, that was great.
Thanks.
So you've got 3 XP to mark there at least. We might revisit the echoes. Let's go to Mr. Gennadios. Mr. Gennadios. Did you Hunter's answer question? Yes. What was your echo in the night, Mr. Gennadios?
The puppets.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the puppet show. Yeah, that's really good. Did you secretly show us vulnerable side to someone?
I was going for that with reminding Willoughby, don't die.
This also, I'll remind you also that these questions could have been answered last week during the day phase, right? So it's dawn phase to dawn phase. So
I remember last week's day phase.
Yeah, you might have when you went to the hanging with the photographs.
Oh yeah, because you actually,
yeah.
I heard the part of the video where you said like, this is like, even for you, this is uncomfortable, like the hanging man, like talking to Mr. Turner. Like, it's an uncomfortable moment. I'm into that. And did you express a clear preference for the beautiful over the mundane?
Not today.
And so you have 3 experience points. And then you all can just like mark your XP on a little track there down below.
Unless shirking the couch for your settee was.
I kind of like it, but I'll leave it up to Drew.
You were eating peeled grapes earlier as opposed to regular old ugly
honestly,
grapes.
The shirking the couch for the sete was definitely like, oh no, that's not good enough.
Yeah, that's not good enough. This is where yeah. Yeah, I think that's in the spirit of the question at least. So I'm here for it. Good. Mr. Turner, yes to the question. Did you do an echo in the night, Mr. Turner?
Yeah, the perfume bottle with the blood in it.
Oh, very good. Yeah, interesting. And did you counsel someone using your supernatural affinities as the basis for that advice?
Yes, last time I made sure to do this at the hanging when I explained how the hanging man was going to come into play to Mr. Gennadios.
Mm-hmm. I remember that. Take your XP. And did you make love to a human in order to forget the darkness?
No, unfortunately not. I don't think I've done it yet.
No, not yet. You got 3 XP though. So, all right, let's take a look at the clicker. Are there any unresolved Janus masks that we haven't done yet? And you also at this point can choose New Dawn questions as well if you wish. Give you a moment to do that. And then we will begin the day phase. Now, of course, the days don't have to be sequential. Time passes between the various phases. The night phase doesn't even have to match up to the same day, right? There can be time in between those as well. In terms of timekeeping on the Coven, you have 2 night phases left. I think this day phase takes place probably, I think there was probably some time needed to get Hargrave House back in order because the marionettes did a number on it. And so I think this is probably like a week or so afterwards, after those events.
I bet Willoughby and Dr. Trigor had a lot of interesting conversations as we shifted bodies out of the house in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Oh, no, don't throw that out. I need that one.
I need that one. What's for science? Actually, during the Victorian times, there was big business in bodies, right? Like snatching up bodies and bringing them to doctors was you could make a good penny off of it. They actually had to, I think it was in the late 1870s or maybe the 80s, they had to have like a whole law of like to like expressly say you cannot snatch bodies from graves. Like it was such a problem. So there are 3 active threats, or 2 active threats, which means I get to introduce a third one. Let me go find one.
As a matter of game mechanical kind of question, we could use the dawn phase to answer another question that's dawn and dusk. Is that right?
Dawn and dusk are just upkeep phases. Answering a question kind of happens outside of the phase structure. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of technically happening like in a particular time of day, but we don't really concern ourselves with it. Let's talk about the new threat, which is the creature of Cremorne Gardens. That ever reliable rag, the Illustrated Police News, has lately been carrying stories about the so-called creature of Cremorne Gardens, sometimes called the creature of Chelsea Harbor, and more rarely, the creature of Chain Walk. The creature, described as a, quote, fish-like thing, or a, quote, fish man, has been terrorizing pleasure seekers from the shadows, giving a fright when glimpsed skulking about, but rarely making direct contact. Men and women alike have been lured to the end of a nearby pier by a strange song while promenading, though with no memory of how they got there once the song's spell ended. All of this could easily be chalked up to hysteria, or perhaps some elaborate hoax by someone who resents Cremorne Gardens, if not for a physical attack upon a young couple, Simon Piedmont and Beulah Thrum. Mr. Piedmont and Ms. Thrum described how the creature leapt at them from a crouched position like a cat and tore at Ms. Thrum's coat. Scotland Yard is investigating. I'm going to pose a question to Mr. Turner. You have a connection to Thomas Simpson, the proprietor of Cremorne Gardens, having worked there one summer, perhaps before you joined Hargrave House. What was your job, and what did you do to lose it? And the Cremorne Gardens, just so you know, is it's like an amusement park, basically, essentially. Victorian era amusement park.
So there are rides and stuff like that?
Well, there's like hot air balloons and there's like hot air balloons, but it's mostly like, like tents with performers, and there's a bowling saloon, a dancing platform, that kind of thing.
I know exactly what I did then. So probably like a magician called in sick, and I took the role upon myself, and I did it so well that I scared the shit out of people because it was probably
It was too real.
Yeah. Like maybe it was real even or something.
Well, and also you probably like had like, bloody crosses or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, people were like, this is a kid's show.
This is supposed to be relaxing. Good. But Thomas Simpson, the proprietor of Cremorne Gardens, like you have a connection there.
Probably my wealthy father got me in. Nepotism strikes again.
Possibly. We have a threshold question here before we can see the other questions, which is this fish creature real or is it a hoax? The complexity is 4, and the opportunity is it unlocks the next appropriate question. So the first thing you have to figure out is if this is really a thing, if there's actually like a fish man, or if this is just something people are imagining. The magical song is just hysteria. It could be any number of things. So depending on whether it's real or not, it affects the rest of the investigation, basically. But it's also just kind of an excuse for Hargrave House to go enjoy Cremwood Gardens. So you all have had a rough week. Treat yourself. And so I think I want to go around the table at this point, just find out what everyone's interested in doing. Mr. Turner, since you do have the connection, this probably caught your attention. What do you want to do? And there's also the figs. The figs are still active, and you can't resolve the Coven right now. You have to wait till a night phase, but the Coven is out there.
Right, yeah. I think I've been seething about the Coven encroaching on my territory for a while, but have been biding my time. I like the idea of maybe we see this over breakfast or something like that, and I'm the one that brings it up, like my thoughts about having worked there before, and I've been on such an edge since it's happened and been like biting people's heads off around the house that maybe it's proposed that I go release some steam.
Take a day. Have a self-care day, Mr. Turner. Okay, so you might head over there. Sounds good. Dr. Tagore, what do you want to do today?
I am so drenched in guilt, taint, and fascination that I need some time at the Turkish baths. Who the hell wants to go with me? Because I got 3 conditions. That's my plan, Turkish baths, if somebody will join me. Otherwise, I'll find another investigatory route here.
Well, I'm happy to. I don't think I've been there yet, actually. So that could be good.
You'd like it?
It's a very self-care day for me.
Day of self-care. I love it. Good. Mr. Gennadius, what do you want to do today?
I think a day at Cremorne Gardens could be just what he needs to get out of the house a little bit.
You bringing Willoughby with you?
If Willoughby doesn't have other plans.
Makes some sense. Willoughby has some conditions that maybe some vulnerable confessions might clear up.
Some brandy at the gardens.
Dr. Tagore, I see your question. Yes, you can definitely have a scene with a child. I would love to see it. So,
yeah, it feels like I've got enough body parts and gore accumulated and guilt that this is the moment to.
It serves no like mechanical purpose. It's purely color, but it can also help with the Dawn question, I suppose. So.
Yeah, but it's the right time for the color. It seems like.
Yeah, I think so.
Says the guy whose hands are covered in gore and is bleeding from his own forehead.
Why don't we have that scene in the beginning then? Maybe it's maybe it's still morning time, say. And tell us about the lab. This lab that is in Hargrave House, but no one else knows about. I'm curious, like, what this looks like. What is the story with the lab?
My thought on the lab is that I've got my little private chamber in Hargrave House, but when I arrived here, when I moved in, I was stepping across a small sort of area rug, and there was that hollow thump, and I realized that beneath this rug there was a trap door. And that there was a sub chamber, maybe low, kind of duck your head, but a prior resident had a chamber, and I realized this was the place for my lab. And then gradually, over the course of a few days, I would bring in some crates of instruments and unpack them. Maybe everybody else is in the salon downstairs hearing some strange thumping in the ceiling where they can't quite place, like, what the hell is Dr. Tagore doing up there? And like, when they knock on my door, there's a bit of a just a moment.
Indeed. So what do you do with the child? What does that look like?
Oh, well, I'm just a guilt-ridden mess right now, full of taint and regret. And I've accumulated roughly half the body parts. So I see myself kind of hunched down on a little tiny stool, elegant but tiny, adjacent to this little wooden trestle table with these partially assembled parts, trying to tentatively string out based on puppet theory at this point. Like, how do I need, what tendons do I need, what muscles do I need to connect this to this in order to make it work? What lessons have I learned from Sally No Face in reconstructing tissue? And I'm talking as I work, talking to my sister Dottie, saying, you know, it's been far too long since we've seen each other, and I can see you're close. I have a head and eyes and hair at this point, and so thinking about the braiding of the hair and that I might be able to braid sinew to attach the more substantial parts of the body, because right now I have legs and essentially the upper part. And talk about all those times that Dottie and I said we would spend together, and yet something intervened, something got in the way, and we just weren't able to get together. And you know, tears start running through my face, kind of trickling through, like causing creases through the blood, like clearing a path through dried blood from last night or nights before. Or I'm just imagining that if it's been too long. And I, you know, do that kind of sniffling wipe, you know, sobbing, and just smear blood and gore across my face, and then see my hands. Like, I have got to go to the baths. I can't take this any longer.
Good, thank you. Willoughby, catch me up. You said you were going to Cremwood Gardens with Mr. Genadius, or was there something else? Okay.
Yes, but would be clue seeking in that particular moment, and then perhaps a vulnerable scene along the way. Does that
sure, yeah.
jive? Okay.
We can have the vulnerable scene like on the way if you want to do that. I think that'd be great. Either someone's bringing memento mori photographs or someone's bringing brandy. which is it?
Always have it on me.
Okay, good. Let's just have the scene in the hansom cab then. You know, you're packed in pretty tight. These two person horse-drawn carriages, and I think it's actually like it's a nice day in London. It's a nice sunny, a rare, warm, sunny day in the city this time of year. And let's just have the scene.
Willoughby looks a little green. Something about the motion of the hansom is quite jostling. And so I pull out a flask, and is the one of many things I attempted to steal from my current employer. This was the one he let me keep. Has a little brandy in it, and I take a sip and then offer it across the cab.
He'll look at it, and there's almost a moment where he's looking down his nose at it, but then he just kind of takes in a sharp breath and reaches for it. Thank you.
It's a new Armagnac, actually, from a region in France I have not tried before. I think you'll like it.
It's not from Armagnac.
I have not been. I'm not that cultured.
I think it's why. Is that why it's, I could be wrong. Is that why it's called Armagnac? I don't know. I might be.
It's from the region. That's why it's called Armagnac. Same as champagne is from Champagne.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
Awesome. Oh yeah, it is the Armagnac region in Gascony, Southwest France. Oh, cool. Sorry, continue.
He'll take a sip and say, I was there once, you know, Gascony, Southwest France.
I've never had the pleasure. The closest I've been is a barrel.
Perhaps one day you and I, Willoughby, will travel, leave this fetid city.
I think that would be quite excellent.
It would. And he'll go back to looking out the window.
After another 5 or 6 minutes, I silently pass the flask, and we continue on our way.
Let's talk about this vulnerable move. Are either of you clearing conditions right now?
I would sure like to not be car sick any longer.
You can take that. Yeah, that's good.
I think I'll get rid of tainted.
Mm. And Willoughby, because it's your vice, you can stumble on a clue during this little journey, or you can invite Mr. Gennadios to ask you about your past.
How I wish it was the other way around. I invite Mr. Gennadios to ask a question.
You can think on it if you need it, Drew. But...
Were it not for our meeting, where do you imagine you would be now, Willoughby?
Given the season, I suppose I would be out with the family at the country estate, which is but a stone's throw away from Braithwaite.
He'll look at Willoughby with new appreciation and just give a small nod. Comes from
It certainly would be lovely out there a day like today. But we continue. Where next?
Good. We'll cut the scene there. Thank you. Let's go to the Turkish baths. So let's do some Googling on Turkish baths. Oh, it's just like a steam bathhouse. So yeah, that's yeah. Sounds good to me. Frame up the scene, Dr. Tagore, since this is your little day trip with Mr. Turner. Or part of your day trip? What does the scene look like?
Oh, Mr. Turner, you're with me, yes?
Oh yeah.
So I'm picturing us, disembarking from a cab and me kind of cheerfully ushering him in, but also kind of hesitant to touch because I feel a little tainted and but like almost wanting to grab him by the shoulder and be like, come in. You'll love it here. And as we step in, I'll have that kind of I'm a regular here conversation with the concierge, basically saying, is Gregory in today? And oh, Mr. Turner, if you have not yet been here, Gregory, let's just say he picked the grapes whenever he grew up in Corsica and got some muscular strength in his fingers that has proven amazing for just general body work.
Interesting. I would not have made the connection between the grapes and the musculature of the man, but I defer to your expertise.
Well, this is my proclivity, but you know a good grape picker when you see one.
I imagine so.
And then there's a closet over here, a changing room where you can change into the towel. The towel's there, and then we'll meet out here in just a moment, and off we go to disrobe and wrap in towels.
So anybody clear your condition here?
I'll sweat out my tainted.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, I think I'll sweat out the taint as well. That sounds horrible.
Sounds kind of horrible, yeah. A little bit. Fabulous.
It's not meant to be that way.
It's like how dogs sweat out their tongue, right?
Let's go to, you get to stumble on a clue, Dr. Tagore, or invite Mr. Turner to ask you a question about the past.
Let's stumble on a clue.
All right, you get to invent the clue, and it can be for either Figs Pigs or for the Creature of Kremlin Gardens. So just whenever you have that clue ready to go, we'll add it in. And
think I got the clue ready.
Oh, what is it? Do tell.
Mr. Turner, you were the one who spotted the tattooed toe or whatever it was in the initial pie, right?
Spotted, yeah.
It's just a piece of skin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Flesh.
It feels like you should see a matching tattoo in our
Oh,
time.
that's
here with
good.
that.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Do you want to add on that, Fraser?
It was an anchor, I think, right? A dock worker type thing.
I think so, yeah.
I have noted it. So, and it's a little early, but I think I'm going to stop here. We'll continue with the day phase. We'll keep this day phase going next week. But for now, let's take a little breather, just as our characters are taking a breather, and do stars and wishes. Stars, things you enjoyed about the session. Wishes, things you hope to see next time. Whoever wants to go first, go ahead.
I enjoyed the I enjoyed the periodic sort of loss of agency where we say what we want to do at the night, but it doesn't necessarily happen, and then it turns into something fun and interesting each time. I really liked the idea of like reverse possession. Like, you know how in The Exorcist they do that thing and the smoke comes out of them, whereas this is just like it goes into them. It's like even more interesting to me. But I also really liked Brian's scene with the stabbing of the forehead stuff and the marionette. I thought like the echoes in the night were really on point, and like, yeah, like even more playing into each other this time maybe than other times, which was cool. And wish, I'm a little worried about Turner now because I think he won't stop until he actually like destroys them now, because he even was angry at them even in the dream, right, where he was like, don't, you better not come for me, and then they did, and he's like, well, I'm gonna have to, like, I'm at the point where I am 1 XP away from another move, and I would take like a custom move that would just be like destroy witches move or something. I'm gonna get you.
Specifically destroy witches. That's good. Yeah. I love it. Thank you, Fraser. My first star is definitely for the answer a question in the beginning. We've had some really good like theorizing and mystery solving, but this one felt great. I just loved how you all were able to take these clues that were written to be just symbols. Like all of the Coven clues are literally just symbols. There's like none, there are none that are like forensic, right? They're all like kind of abstract and strange. And I thought you all did a wonderful job, like kind of translating the symbols to be the answer to a question, which is what I think Hargrave House would do, right? Like they would see things that others can't see. They would look past the obvious and make connections that others would not make connections. That's what Hargrave House does. And I thought you all did a great job as players doing that. And I was super happy with that answer a question. I thought it was great. I loved the whole night phase. I knew what I was going to do on that 7 to 9. I was like, oh, they're giving me a 7 to 9 on this. I'm going to hit them really hard. Like it's going to be like hard. If you had like bumped it to a 10, it wouldn't have been like that. So I thought that just that the interplay between what I wanted to do as the keeper and what I wanted to kind of hit you with, and whether you were going to give me the space to do it, was interesting because if you had taken the 10 plus, it would have been a much easier, like I probably would have been like down in the sewers fighting the witches and taking them out. But because you chose the 7 to 9, it makes like the witches fight back basically, right? Like they know you're close to finding them and they are not happy with this, and so they're going to fight back. And so it's fun. It was just really fun to see that kind of war between essentially two supernatural gangs, right? Like kind of like going at each other. So that was really good. And yeah, just great. Just overall great stuff, great scenes, great flashbacks. The little moment where we learned how Alexander and Willoughby sort of became connected was really intriguing. I didn't see that coming. That was an interesting plot twist. And I also like the sort of, there was a sort of unspoken thing going on there where we don't know how Alexander convinced Willoughby to become a servant, you know, but he did. And so I'm kind of curious about that. Like, what was the thing that pushed it that way? So, and also just a star for like, I love this sort of like, we have this crazy, intense, dangerous, bloody, horrible night phase, and now we go to this like practically leisurely day phase, right? Like that is the between in a nutshell, and I love it. So yeah, it just felt great. Wishes. I don't know. I think I'm mainly really interested. Oh, other stars. So many stars. My other star is I loved the Belforts versus the Figs. That was so good during the night phase. Like the Belforts were truly for the Figs, right? Like that was the part that they were sort of like speaking to, although the puppet stuff, you know, did happen. But just the idea of this upstanding family who are horrible ultimately, and this like horrible family who are loving and tender with each other. I just love that so much. I thought that was great. Which is I'm very interested to kind of see. I want more Mask of the Past from everybody. I really just want to see more of that stuff, and I really want to see Cremorne Gardens. I want to see this moment of Hargrave House having a break, essentially. Like kind of, even though they haven't gotten the job done yet with the Coven, but I just want to see that, you know. So.
I'll jump in. We could start with crackers and juice, but there's better stuff. The notion of Mr. Turner covering for the magician who called in sick, like that is an entire comic book right there. I want to see that series. Sounds amazing.
I just love the humor too of like when Fraser goes, "Sir, this is a kids' magic show."
Right.
That moment is so funny.
Exactly. So I feel like there's an entire comic book series that I look forward to reading it. And Mr. Gennario's basically saying, "Oh no, this you know, ridiculously ostentatious leather sectional is not for me. You know, I prefer my tradition. I need the Greek settee." It was so simple, but it was like, you know, it's almost like we had the same, the two of you, I mean, had the same idea, and you're like, oh no, I've got my taste. So it added a hell of a lot to that character for me. And then Sarah throwing in from Willoughby the old factotum. I hadn't even thought about there being a prior factotum. It seems obvious now, and the potential for the role playing of,
and like what happened. That's the thing that kills me. I want to, like, we got Sarah narrated the moment when they met, and then skipped a whole bunch in the middle, and then the moment when Alexander says, "Now you serve me," right? Like it's that middle part. Like I'm dying to know what happened in that middle part.
I have to give a star to Drew, who I may have messaged yesterday with this very predicament of how can we have a previously established relationship in a game that is designed to be exactly the opposite of that. And so the previous factotum, I just narrated it. That star goes entirely to Drew in that regard, but it was a genius way to start really diving into the how we influence each other as the factotum versus the undeniable. I'm really excited to start playing that out. More scalpel stars for sure. Just the idea of the man of science trying to physically carve at a mental tether that's not there just was really excellent. I also enjoyed the offshoot as a magician. That was quite hilarious. It's just the idea. I imagine that the crosses in that magic show are crying, and then you're crying just actual blood.
Kids start speaking in tongues. You know? I just imagine. It for a moment. It kind of felt like it kind of ventured into like Ryan Murphy horror territory. You know, just this like idea of yeah, but it was a good little side moment.
More stars are definitely, now that I understand the echoes in the night more, like we're 6 sessions in, and now I really have a feel for how that narrative builds. And just like you said, however many episodes ago, it really does become a moment where you're just like, oh, I get it. And that's how you try to tie 3 of them into one single description. But it's very fun as a player. Like, that's really satisfying to play out. God, I just don't know if I have any wishes, because I don't want to really know how the cannibals lived their life any more than I already do.
There's one more room in the shop to explore, so it's the basement. I feel like it's the one that's gonna flip the table. So
Willoughby needs a buddy to go into the basement, but I need a teammate for that one, please.
Fair enough. Who hasn't gone yet? Drew, did you go?
I have not. Star for Willoughby's fortuitous appearance and just the retconning in of how it made sense. That was cute. There's actually a path to the basement. Okay. Also, just that whole siege on Hargrave House was a lot of fun, and the strings tearing out of these poor people's bodies was that was good and creepy and gross. So stars for that, and pretty much how everyone dealt with that. And Dr. Tagore on the floor dealing with his own brain turning against him kind of was good. So just that whole scene, big star. Wishes, I am looking forward to more opportunities for people to be like, what is Alexander? That's like he's definitely dropping lots of hints, and it'll be fun to see those start leading to something. And I want to take down some witches. They've stormed our castle. That can't stand.
They are the most. They're the most dangerous threat by a lot. Like as far as like outside of the mastermind, they're like the most dangerous one. And it's been fun to kind of like just to show like how formidable they are. Right, they're such a formidable threat. I think it's really enjoyable.
I have another wish actually. Is when you were saying how Drew has that move that they can make people worship. I think it would.
Yeah, the another hunter decides to be.
Yeah, I think it would be cool to build Ives up to the point where he is about to self-destruct and like give himself to this dark entity, and then have the undeniable deny that from Turner and turn him to that. It would even be like a good catalyst for taking a different playbook or something too, or having or some means of retirement for Turner. So that he doesn't become the vessel anymore. I think that would be a cool trajectory to aim at.
I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah.
I have one more wish. No, I'm sorry, one more star. All of the mastermind clues have been blue, and that color theme just makes me really happy to be in this game with all of you. It's just really good.
Yeah, I like the mastermind clues are fun because they are. It's interesting because if you have the explorer in the group, which is one of the other playbooks, the explorer gets to, because if the explorer's in the group, you get to use the mastermind clues to answer questions about the threats, right? So it's like the explorer the explorer always sees the mastermind's connection to things and is always and always like makes those connections, right? So it's kind of fascinating to have a group without an explorer, where the mastermind clearly has their paws on everything, but you all are like kind of, as characters at least, are missing that connection, right? Like your characters aren't seeing it, even though we as players are seeing it. So that's kind of fun, just as a sort of like point of view thing. One of the things that, like, when I was designing the game, it was a really intentional design process where, based off which playbooks are in play, you get a different type of story, right? Like, different playbooks make a different type of Hargrave House, and they have a different feel. They do different things. The vessel makes it much more supernatural. The undeniable has the potential to introduce a lot of like problems for Hargrave House, like especially if you start doing Take It Away, and the Explorer is another one. The American changes it a lot too, right? Like, if you have the American, that the American connects Hargrave House up to like the lower classes and like the sort of like more common people of London, like that kind of becomes hooked into the story. And the Factotum can do that as well if you have that one move that gives you the gang. And the Explorer sort of like changes the relationship with the mastermind. So I love seeing, I've played this in different combinations, and I just kind of love seeing how the existence of certain playbooks changes the whole feel of the game in a lot of ways, or at least it changes the feel of Hargrave House. The game is still kind of the same, but Hargrave House feels really different. So it's kind of fun. But
a dice mechanic question for you.
Sure, yeah.
There can be rolls at disadvantage for various reasons. If you are checking an item in your personal lodgings, you gain advantage, right?
Yes.
Hypothetically, you could be in a situation where you have both. You're at disadvantage and at advantage.
They cancel each other out.
So you're not rolling 4 dice and subtracting both the lowest and the highest.
No, they don't stack. So yeah, you can never have more than, they don't stack. So if you have several things that give you disadvantage, it's just disadvantage. And if you have several things that give you advantage, it's just advantage. And if you have both, it just cancels each other out and you roll 2 dice. So yeah. That's normal. Awesome. Is there anything else before we go? Fantastic. Thank you all so much for another great session. I look forward to next week.
Same.
Bye, everybody.